Hi, my name is Sean Gold, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I am excited to be here today. I was invited here today to talk about physical disabilities, discussing the disadvantages we face in the community, the limited services we have provided, and the obstacles we still have to go through just to get approved for the service regarding schooling and everyday life. My physical disability is cerebral palsy, and I also have a tracheostomy breathing tube. I have my trach because my airway was not open like it should have been when I was born. Due to that, I rely on my breathing tube as my primary source of breathing. However, I only consider that an ability because it gave me a way to breathe on my own. Living with a physical disability has caused some setbacks in my life, and it still does today. Part of the reason as to why it's so tricky is because of the pre-assumptions made by people without disabilities. I know that everyone in the world has some type of disability. However, there's still a big difference between seeing me as someone with less ability to do something versus seeing me as someone with a disability. I think the biggest one would be that I can't communicate or understand what people are saying, which is insensitive. That's the media's blame, making it seem like it's one blanket disability trait. While I can't speak verbally, I can still communicate. Just because people are nonverbal, it never gives you the right to disregard their presence. Cerebral palsy, or CP for short, affects my movement abilities. The exact diagnosis that I have is mixed athetoid spastic diplegia. The athetoid causes shakiness and the spastic diplegia makes me have spasms at random times throughout my body. This is also why I can't use my left hand as much as I would like and why I get fatigued faster than an able-bodied person. The cause of cerebral palsy is a brain injury or brain malformation that occurs while the brain is developing before, during, or after birth. As a result of brain damage during brain development, a child's muscle control, muscle coordination, muscle tone, reflex, posture, and balance can be affected. Everything that I've just listed has affected my body. As a toddler, I used a walker, and now I no longer need one. I graduated high school in May of 2017, and I was already in my first college class at the end of the month. Before I graduated high school, on my 18th birthday, I passed my first Microsoft certification for web design. I also attended all regular classes. I wrote my first book and published it in March 2021. 1 year later, I can proudly say that I graduated with my associates and began my English bachelor's program at UMSL this month. No, neither an English or a creative writing degree is necessary to publish a book. It is completely optional. However, I just wanted a bachelor's as a personal accomplishment. As a teenager, fanfiction was where I practiced my writing a lot. If I compare my progress since 2013, I have improved tremendously. However, all of those stories are under a username that I will never give out. No one needs to read that horrible stuff. However, I keep those up to remind myself that I have gotten better despite my self-doubts. As an aspiring public speaker and author, I've always loved writing. Ever since I was little, I've always preferred writing my own stories over reading. It comes from the sense of never liking to read, but I would always email my family my finished 1 to 2 paragraph stories, proudly awaiting positive feedback. For me, writing is like an escape. Whether it's fan fiction, role play, or even something for English class, it allows me to be expressive. Furthermore, since I'm nonverbal, I am constantly typing on a device, phone, computer, or some communication device, to be involved in the conversation going on. It only makes sense for me to do it as a degree and career choice. Transitioning from high school into college was a struggle. It is hard to get the services I need to live in my everyday life. A nurse is one of the biggest things I require to have an independent life. As a result of my spasticity, I can't take care of my own trach, which is my lifeline, nor can I drive a car. This means that I'll never be completely independent in life. Although I've come to terms with that, I believe that I should be able to get more services than I have. Why can't I go out and get a job without having to think about having a nurse? How come I can't just go out with my friends without a family member there? How is that independence even if family members don't sit with us? They're still in the same place, so it isn't complete independence. In high school, I had a nurse and the ability to hang out with my friends without my mom or brother. Why did all of that have to change? This is the biggest challenge that hasn't been solved yet. The reason is that we still live in a society rooted in ableism and ableist theories. For those unaware, the definition of ableism is discrimination or prejudice against people who have disabilities. You can easily relate this word to feminism and racism, all based on discrimination. Ableism can take the form of ideas and assumptions, stereotypes, attitudes and practices, physical barriers in the environment, or larger-scale oppression. It is often unintentional, and most people are entirely unaware of the impact of their words or actions. One example is seeing someone like myself holding hands with their significant other but mistaking them as their caregiver. Or how about praising the able-bodied for simply being a hero just because their best friend is in a wheelchair? This also suggests that the physically and mentally challenged communities aren't valued in the workforce or in everyday life. Which simply isn't true. We can be doctors, lawyers, mothers, fathers, and even the President of the United States if given the opportunity. I can honestly say that I have more online friends than I do in person. My online friends are just as close as the ones I've made in school. In fact, my longest friendship is from Twitter, and it's been 12 years. My second longest I met on Facebook 9 years ago. High school wasn't as easy to make friends with as it was in middle school and elementary. I know that it can be scary meeting people online and calling them your friends, but I know the ones I have are real. The point of me telling you this is to say that it's easier for me to communicate online than in person. It's not that I'm shy, but it's easier for me because I don't feel as awkward to have someone looking at me as I type my response. I don't mind it that much. However, I have to get over it since I'm a public speaker. Online was easier because it allowed me to hide my disability if I wanted to. There's no need to say that I have CP or that I breathe like a dying walrus if I don't want to. It was better that way. The reason is that when I did tell, they either didn't care, or it sounded cool. That was one of the reasons why finding friends in high school was hard. I couldn't hide anything. It couldn't be hidden that I had a trach or that I used a wheelchair. There was no way to hide that nurse or TA who had to always follow me around. They had to know that I was smart enough to be in the classroom, considering that the other students who had disabilities were kept in an obtained classroom. When I started going to my technical college for web design, that's where I felt like I belonged. Some students had the same interest as I did, and by senior year we were all like a group of friends in one classroom. They didn't care about my disability at all. It was all real friendship with a pretty cool teacher as well. I mean, he allowed us to listen to YouTube with headphones as we worked. Could we really complain? I consider myself so lucky and blessed despite my own school challenges. This wasn't always possible for disabled people. There was no way I would have been able to be a part of any of this if I were born over 100 years ago or even 50 to 60 years ago. It wouldn't be possible for me to do any of that. I wouldn't be able to attend any public or private school or college. Why is that? As stated on Wikipedia, from 1867 to 1974, many cities in the United States had what were called ugly laws. These laws targeted poor people and especially disabled people. For instance, in San Francisco, a law in 1867 deemed it illegal for any person, who is diseased, maimed, mutilated or deformed in any way, so as to be an unsightly or disgusting object, to expose himself or herself to public view. Of course, there had to be exceptions. Some public exposure was acceptable only if the people were subjects of demonstration to illustrate the separation of disabled from non-disabled and their need for reformation. There was a connection between ugly laws and public hygiene management schemes such as segregation, eugenics, and institutionalization. This next section of the speech has triggering information about eugenics and shock therapy. Please know your own limits. What exactly is eugenics? Maybe you've heard of this, or maybe you have not. Found on a website called The Guardian, an article informs that it is a theory stating the types of efforts should be made to decrease all elements of genetic inferiority from the human race until they no longer exist. This categorization laid the foundations for how we understand people to be disabled or non-disabled today. Led by Charles Davenport, a biologist and Galton devotee, the Eugenics Record Office in Cold Spring Harbor, New York, set out in 1910 to promote a racist, ableist ideology and to harvest the pedigrees of Americans. With this data, Davenport figured, they could establish the inheritance of traits both desirable and defective, and thus purify the American people. This type of thinking hasn't technically gone away, it has only evolved within modern times in both society and the medical field. The Record Office pressed for the segregation of those considered insane in asylums and for laws requiring that they be forcibly sterilized to further ensure they would not produce others like themselves. It was clear that the desired permanent segregation of mental patients was not for therapeutic purposes but for the good of society. Eugenicists tried to cloak their mission in science, turning out studies designed to prove that mental illness was inherited. In the 1920s, top scientists, including prominent psychiatrists like Adolph Meyer and American Psychiatric Association President Floyd Haviland, came together to found the American Eugenics Society. Its mission was to sell eugenics and promote sterilization laws to the American public. Let's take a deeper dive into eugenics through electric shock therapy. This comes with a major trigger warning. Please understand when I say that just because this term contains the word therapy in it, does not mean it is a good thing. Electroconvulsive therapy became popular in the US in the 1940s. At the time, psychiatric hospitals were overrun with patients whom doctors were desperate to treat and cure. At this time, lobotomies were also taking place, a neurosurgical treatment of a mental disorder that involves severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex. This form of ECT, the one we see in movies with people thrashing about and screaming. The Judge Rotenberg Center is claimed to be a school that's the last resort for troubled children and adults with certain disabilities and mental disabilities. However, let's just call it a permanent prison-like stay for disabled people to get shocked. Remember how we talked about ableism earlier? Some people are so ableist they don't even want disabled people to be alive. This is along the lines of that. However, let's switch over and explore the entire K-12 school system a lot deeper. We all know that in 1954 the Supreme Court ruling of Brown versus Board of Education ended segregation in schools. This was obviously based on race, and ever since then, everyone can be together, right? Completely false. We are still separated in school based on the child's physical and mental abilities. If a child cannot learn in a regular classroom due to disabilities, they are sent to either the resource room or special education classrooms. These are where students are given more attention due to their accommodations or physical, mental, and intellectual challenges. That's the great impact. I love the teacher assistants, aides, case managers, one-on-one nurses, and paraprofessionals. I wouldn't be who I am today without each and every one of them. 2 different support systems can be put in place for disabled students to get the support they need to learn in the best way possible for them. They are called IEPs and the 504 plan. Now, I'll have to say that I'm not too familiar with this area yet, but I know some things. St. Louis Special School District, also referred to as SSD, is one of only a handful of districts in the country that provides special education services. It's pretty sad to realize it. In St. Louis County, Special School District is tasked with serving all individuals with disabilities requiring an IEP. This can include pre-K programming through transition services at age 21. Be aware that this is only if your child stays in school until that age. Since I was able to graduate with a traditional high school diploma at 18, mine ended. When I transitioned to college, that's when I changed to a 504. Furthermore, in St. Louis County, all individual school districts are responsible for serving students with disabilities who require 504 plans. In the rest of the world, including St. Louis City, school districts have special education departments. Typically these departments create the IEPs. A 504 is a little different as it does not modify the curriculum or its requirements. It also allows the student to actually fail classes. It is much more like college accommodations, same work, same requirements, but accommodations such as extended time and disability-related absences. Often kids served with 504s have a disability related to physical health, and those who need extended time or other things are given connections to SSD. IEPs are designed to ensure student success and graduation with any necessary services, including modifying the curriculum or GPA. That's why it took me a little longer to graduate college. I did struggle in some classes. Yet, I didn't want to be the exception in college. Not for my associates, and I definitely want to earn my English bachelor's on my own. Parents, teachers, and case managers, if the student can have their own say and respectable input about their education, let them in the meetings. I started attending mine in 7th grade and onward. This is so important for many reasons. First, the child is finally given a voice even if it's small. It's their learning environment, after all. They have to give their best in class and pass these classes. Why wouldn't they know what works and what doesn't? Listen to your child, your student. He or she will know what's best, most likely. Let me tell you this funny story I'm about to tell on some teachers, my mom and aunts. So, in 8th grade, I needed a lot of help with homework. Not because I couldn't do it mentally, but I was not doing it on my own because I couldn't write well enough. We had an entire separate meeting to determine how I could be more independent. My solution was simple: why can't my work get emailed to me? The more I think about that meeting, the more pointless I realize that entire meeting was. I get it, it was 2013, and online education was considered too complicated. Whatever that means. My point is that I knew what was best. I knew the answer all along, I just decided to keep quiet until the meeting. I loved my teachers that year. My point is that if the disabled person has mental abilities, they will probably know what's best. I promise not everything has to be that complicated. Now look at us. This crazy pandemic has given disabled people the independence and accessibility we've been fighting for since the beginning of the internet. Online classes are another example of disability justice. My favorite accessibility access has been my live virtual lecture classes. That's one major thing that I hope never goes away, even after the pandemic. Who prefers going to school or working from home on the computer? It's okay if you don't, not everyone does. However, having the option to be in class virtually, not just by online forums, is disability justice. It's a right that should be given to us instead of taken away once this pandemic is over. I can guarantee that more disabled students will pick those options for their schedules. I prefer this option for a multitude of reasons. First, I love how easily accessible they are. I don't have to rely on my family to drive me to and from classes, which takes away from their work time. The biggest thing that disabled people want is independence. I have to say that independence has to be the most common word talked about, as it is the goal. I didn't need to wait for anyone. It gives us the abilities we desire. This will be one of the first times the individual should feel pride in having a disability. Disability pride is, just as the name suggests, someone who is proud to have their disabilities. Someone who is unashamed, not bothered by, or hides the very thing that makes them stand out in the crowd. Disability Pride Month means that I am worthy of joy, success, and celebration. It is a celebration of how far we've come, but a reminder that we still have so long to go. I apologize for the cliché, but it's true. Due to advocates like Judy Heumann, James Lebrecht, Denise Scherer Jacobson, and many others in our community, the ADA was signed into law in July of 1990 by President George Bush. However, when a disabled person does get the chance to be accepted in society, that shouldn't be inspirational. Why does everything we do turn into inspiration for non-disabled people? Inspiration porn portrays people with disabilities as inspirational to able-bodied people based on their circumstances. It is one of the leading factors in ableism history. What seems so harmless to walk up to someone and say what you think is a compliment, it's not. First off, you, as an able-bodied, are only doing it to make yourself feel good about yourself. It has nothing to do with us. While the more known definition is used to sexualize others, inspiration porn is used to dehumanize. It's not inspiring that we go to work or out to eat with friends. Why is it amazing when someone graduates from high school with a regular diploma? People don't see how it's crazy to praise the able-bodied student for simply being a friend to anyone in a wheelchair. Also, it's never about the disabled person that way. We are automatically someone's charity or community service the moment we're someone else's article about interacting with us, and most of the time, the name of the disabled isn't mentioned. This contributes to our job barriers. Disabled people have to work twice as hard to get half the respect in the workforce. Disabled people of color have to work 4 times as hard. For Black disabled men, it's more challenging, and for Black disabled women, it's even worse. I would like to go over some facts about this country and disabled workers. Under the legislation of the Fair Labor Standards Act, Section 14C allows employers to pay their disabled workers any amount under the minimum wage. This can mean that disabled employees can earn pennies an hour and less than $1 on their paychecks. 14C was made legal due to parents of disabled children and adults. The reason is that they wanted their kids to still be able to work and not lose their governmental services because we can't have more than $2,000 to our name. It hasn't happened yet when fighting for the federal $15 minimum wage due to this law. Until we get to lift the disability restriction laws, there will be no minimum wage increase. With that unfortunate barrier in life, there is a way to have a specific account where you can save more money, and it doesn't count against the income limit. An ABLE account, also known as a 529 ABLE or 529A account, is a state-run savings program for eligible people with disabilities in the United States. Rules governing ABLE accounts are codified in Internal Revenue Code Section 529A, which was enacted by the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act in 2014. With limitations, funds in an ABLE account are exempt from the Supplemental Security Income and Medicaid asset limit, and earnings are exempt from federal income tax. Wikipedia states, up to $100,000 in an ABLE account is exempt from the Supplemental Security Income, SSI, asset limit. If an ABLE account larger than $100,000 stops eligibility for SSI, the owner remains eligible for Medicaid. An ABLE account can be used instead of, or together with, a supplemental needs trust to maintain a beneficiary's eligibility for SSI. One of the downsides to this is that you must have had a documented disability before age 26. The disability community, in general, is political. Who's heard of the saying "nothing about us without us"? If you don't know, it means no politician should be passing laws about a particular demographic without the full and direct participation of members of the groups affected by the policy or law being decided. This includes laws based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, and especially disability. All of us should be in mind when elected officials pass laws. However, it's not the case. There aren't enough disabled representatives in Congress or the Senate who understand our struggles based on facts or experience, not assumptions. Yet, I love how we still live, fight, and demand to be treated better in life. I'm not sure if you know, but even as the largest minority, we are unstoppable. This pandemic might have slowed us down, but we are all still here. We are vibrant, loving, caring, talented, and creative human beings who are awesome because of our disabilities and chronic illnesses. We should be celebrated all year long. One way that I love to celebrate our culture is through a yearly festival called Festability. As a board member, I helped put together a wonderful event in St. Louis at the Missouri History Museum. We had so many activities and vendors set up all over with an amazing headliner for our main stage. Getting to do this event was a dream come true. Even though it was extremely hot, the celebration was incredible. I was the opener for our headliner, La Chi. She was incredible. We had food trucks, outdoor adaptive rock climbing, a fashion show, yoga, duo dogs, and a bubble bus. Over 2,000 people attended the event. The extreme heat didn't stop our celebration. I had the time of my life, and I cannot wait to do it again next year, but hopefully with better weather. Speaking of celebrating, how about all of the fantastic disabled people who have made it in Hollywood or the entertainment industry as a whole? We are finally seeing and hearing stories that are for us, about us, and by us. For so long, we were shut out, misrepresented, and our stories were only told to show the so-called tragedies that we supposedly have viewed by the able-bodied. They didn't have an interest in how we actually live. Again, this is why we see inspiration porn as bad, because the limitations harm us in the long run. Nevertheless, we have seen many incredible disabled people succeed in the last decade. We have the incredible Tony Award winner Ali Stroker for her role as Adu Annie in the musical Oklahoma. There is the stunning multi-Emmy nominated actress Marlee Matlin. She has been in Hollywood acting since 1986. How about Ryan O'Connell from the Netflix series Special, Lauren Potter from Glee, and Micah Fowler, who had a leading role in the ABC series, Speechless. These public figures are significant in our history because they normalize having success while disabled. Representation is essential for us to see because, in a way, it normalizes our existence and our worth. They are responsible for the much-needed change in film and TV. As for the music business, we have quite a few people too. Artists like the late Ray Charles. He was a famous singer, songwriter, and pianist. Ray made music in R&B, soul, jazz, blues, gospel, country, and rock and roll. There was plenty of music that is classic in the Black and hopefully the disabled community, such as Georgia on My Mind, Hit the Road Jack, and You Are My Sunshine. Stevie Wonder is another amazing black, blind, soulful artist. He is a singer and pianist, he plays the drums and the harmonica. With similar musical genres in R&B, soul, pop, funk, gospel, and jazz, he has made sure to leave his unforgettable mark in life. These two artists have been a massive part of my childhood and adulthood. They were breaking barriers for future artists like Cody Lee. I remember the day that I saw his audition video on America's Got Talent in 2019. The joy that filled my heart knew that our generation had someone similar to Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. Please make no mistake, these are all incredible artists because of their blindness, not despite. All of the mentioned celebrities have made an incredible impact on the country. You don't have to be a politician to make a change. Being a celebrity has perks, but you don't need to be one. You need drive, passion, and a desire for change. It doesn't matter how big or small. Like I've said, we can't be stopped no matter what we have to fight through. I love being in this big disabled family because we keep pushing. We raise awareness, we aren't afraid to directly email our senators and congresspeople in order to be seen and heard. It doesn't matter if we can't be in the streets. We have the power of the internet. Online advocacy is still advocating. It is still protesting. It is still community organization, effective, and validating. Within the community, Black Lives Matter and the Stop Asian Hate movements have connections with the disability community. While most people were outside protesting, disabled people, including myself, did it through social media. So many people forget the true power of things like Instagram and TikTok. In fact, TikTok has been proven over and over again that it is more than a place for dangerous challenges and silly videos. I've only been on the app for 1 year and already have over 20,000 followers. There's a feature specifically for questions and answers where I had people ask all disability-related questions for the month of July. I cross-post on Instagram doing the same thing, pretty much. I have made many friends in the disabled and author communities with these two apps. Most of my book sales probably came from TikTok. Which is called Pure Love, or is it? Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I can say that this app has surprisingly been handy for my advocacy and public speaking career. Growing up, I loved going to physical therapy. I went to physical therapy and occupational therapy for as long as I can remember. It was from when I was a year old until I turned 21. Things are a little different during physical therapy, but for my benefit, it goes hand in hand with one another. When in PT, my focus is on endurance. My goals have now become distance-based to walk long distances between needing a break. Ever since I broke my right femur in 2012, my time to be on the treadmill without resting increased. I have gone from a 5-minute goal to a 40-minute goal. I was able to successfully achieve it before the pandemic. Even with it being so high, it still depended on my body spasms whether or not I made it even 10 or 20 minutes. Every day is up to my body. Once again, the questions become more frequent on repeat. Am I keeping up with the speed? How am I taking each step? Are my spasms going to mess me up? Will my left hand need to be in the cup holder sooner, or will it be able to hold on to the handle longer? Believe me, the questions never come to an end until I'm sitting. Also, my therapist has to keep reminding me to put my heel down first and to take longer steps. I've always been someone who walks on their toes, and the braces in my shoes help me keep them down, stand up straighter, and walk better. At DASA, which stands for Disabled Athletic Sports Association, I work out with my trainer to help with my strength through their functional fitness program. My goal is tailored specifically to gaining my strength and better controlling my muscles and movements. I think that's what makes me a little different than someone who doesn't have a physical disability. I have to work harder to find and keep my balance throughout the day with daily activities. This is also a safe place to say that my limitations are taken into account, but we find ways to work around them. Thankfully, this does not cause my trainer to take it any easier on me than they would an able-bodied. As I've mentioned earlier, I don't want to be treated any different from someone who doesn't have a disability, and DASA does a brilliant job of making me feel equal. Isn't that one of the biggest goals in our culture? We love our parents, teachers, nurses, personal care attendants, friends, and family, who help us every single day. However, whatever we can do by ourselves, we usually want to, and we should. That's why we have wheelchairs, hearing aids, walkers, and other adaptive equipment. My community deserves equality. My community deserves a real chance in life. It shouldn't have to be this way, but we make the best of it. Let this be a lesson that our differences make us more extraordinary, not incapable of being able to handle business. People with disabilities are all fighting for the same thing as the rest of the world, equity and equal opportunities. When this event comes to an end, I want the able-bodied people to be thinking, how can you become an ally or a better ally for accessibility? What are you probably guilty of doing, to which I'm not judging you at all? What will you do the next time you encounter someone who is disabled? Do you think they won't understand you and feel bad when you realize they're mentally capable? Or will you do the opposite, considering that the person will understand you only to find out that they can't and then talk to the parent or caregiver they came with? Instead, I am challenging you to focus on the person. Don't get used to talking to the caregiver all the time. Even if you know your patient can't respond at all, it shouldn't mean that you avoid speaking to them. Who knows if they're really capable of understanding or not? If you're an employer, please focus on the resume to determine if the person will be suitable for the job. When the students' accommodations discussion comes into play, ask what they think would work. We must create more accessible areas for wheelchairs, understand what's really inspiring and what's the norm, and try to empathize instead of sympathize with the disabled community. All we want is to be seen and treated as your equals. Don't we deserve that level of respect? Also, we are an awesome group of people, if I do say so myself. As for my amazing, brilliant, and empowering young disabled and chronically ill community, I see you. No matter how ignored or disposable we seem to the world, we never give up. To the younger disabled kids, we're fighting and advocating for you. I hope you're embracing your beautiful and unique disabilities. Please never give up. I promise you'll love our big community. You are valued. You are loved. You belong. Thank you.